Danke Rumänien, dass ihr eure Infrastruktur für die europäischen Solidaritätskorridore bei euch noch weiter ausbaut, um die Exportkapazität für ukrainisches Getreide bis Ende des Jahres auf 4 Millionen Tonnen pro Monat zu verdoppeln.
This is my video update from Athens, Greece on this Tuesday afternoon, September the 5th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Annalena 360. Annalena 360. That video should have been my clown world, but it's not my clown world, which means that I have a very good clown world lined up. If that video, if that statement from Annalena is not my clown world, then you know there's a good clown world coming. But Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister of Germany, the #1 diplomat for all of Germany, Annalena Baerbock tells her Romanian counterparts, thank you for transporting that Ukraine cocaine grain. And thank you, Lord Bebo, your Twitter account, which takes these videos and you translate them and you put up these really big subtitles. You're doing great work, my man. Absolutely great work. But yeah, Ukraine, cocaine grain. Oh, my Lord. Oh, boy. So a lot of people are saying this is a gaffe from Annalena, but I don't know. Is it really a gaffe? Or is it more of a Freudian slip, kind of letting the truth come out there as she's talking about what's really in the grain being shipped out of Ukraine with the help of Romania. So that's Annalena Baerbock, Germany's foreign minister, Germany's #1 chief diplomat. Oh boy. So in my video yesterday, I talked a bit about the British Challenger 2 tanks. And I said in my video yesterday, wouldn't it be something if those Challenger 2 tanks were destroyed by the Russian military? Because the reports were that the Challenger 2 tanks are now entering combat, but they're firing, according to Forbes, they're firing from afar because they don't really need to move towards the front lines. But if they do move towards the front lines, well, the Challenger 2 tanks, which are equipped with depleted uranium, let's not forget that, the Challenger 2 tanks are a wonder weapon. They are going to make all the difference. They're simply absolutely awesome. And I think it's BAE Systems that make the Challenger 2 tanks. I could be wrong about that, but I do believe it's BAE Systems. And the executive team of BAE Systems, they were just in Ukraine last week. They met with Zelensky. They signed a bunch of contracts to open up a weapons manufacturing facility in Ukraine. And, you know, everyone's talking about the UK military industrial complex and how awesome it is. And Forbes wrote an article talking about how incredible the Challenger 2 tanks are. And I said in my video yesterday, I said, boy, wouldn't it be something if one of those tanks got destroyed by the Russians? And sure enough, today or yesterday or today, after I finished my video, one of the Challenger 2 tanks was destroyed. Now, at first, the images that came out, a lot of people were having doubts, and they were like, I don't know, is it a Challenger 2 tank? Is it not a Challenger 2 tank? But it has now been confirmed that it was indeed a Challenger 2 tank. Even Forbes, who wrote the article talking up just yesterday, talked up how awesome the Challenger 2 tanks are and what a game-changing wonder weapon they are. They came out with an article and they had to admit that the Russian military did indeed destroy a Challenger tank, and it's on video. So not good news for BAE Systems, not good news for the UK and the British military industrial complex. But pretty soon, pretty soon the Russian military is going to actually capture one of these Challenger 2 tanks, and it's going to make a mighty nice display at the Moscow War Museum. So in my video yesterday, I also talked about the big meeting between Putin and Erdogan, and we now have the results of that meeting that took place in Sochi, and it pretty much went as all of us expected it to go. Putin pretty much told Erdogan that Russia's not going to re-enter the grain deal. No chance, he said, that they're going to re-enter the grain deal unless, of course, by some magic miracle, the European Union turns on the SWIFT access for the Russian Agricultural Bank, and the collective West unfreezes the fertilizer producers' assets. Oh, and also Ukraine has to stop launching attacks towards Crimea, drone attacks towards Crimea from the Black Sea corridor. Putin told Erdogan, if all of these three things happen, then maybe we'll talk about re-entering the grain deal. But first, these three conditions have to be met. So it was Putin's way of telling Erdogan, it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen. We know that the collective West is not going to honor the grain deal agreement. So that's that. And during the meeting between Putin and Erdogan, Putin put out some very interesting statements. And I think that Putin wanted to make these statements while Erdogan was standing next to him and while the media was in front of him. I think this was a type of catharsis for Putin. He wanted to say these things in the presence of the media, with Erdogan standing right next to him, and boy, did he say some interesting things. And I think it was kind of like a bit of a therapy for Putin. You know, he wanted to say these things, and here's what he said. He said that the collective West, they are deceiving Russia. They have deceived Russia with the grain deal, and they are deceiving Russia, and they are lying. And he talked about how they didn't honor the grain deal. Keep in mind that everything that Putin was saying, there was no rebuttal or pushback from Erdogan. So he accepted everything that Putin was saying. That's huge. But he said that the collective West, they lie and they deceive. They don't honor their agreements. They didn't honor the grain deal. He said that the grain from the grain deal wasn't even going to the poorest nations that needed it. He said 3% of the grain was actually going to the poorest nations. 70% of the grain was going to the European Union, and the remainder of the grain was going to other wealthy nations. So they didn't honor that either. And he said that Ukraine, with the help of the collective West, they engage in terrorist activities by using the corridor from the grain deal with the protection that we provide. They use that corridor to launch drone attacks towards Crimea and towards the Russian Navy. So he really unloaded on not on Erdogan. He just kind of let it all out there, and Erdogan just sat there and he was like, "Yeah, you know, he's right. I don't have any type of pushback to what the Russian president is saying." That's pretty much what Erdogan was signaling, and Erdogan, he also pitched to Putin to perhaps have Turkish and Russian trade in national currencies. I thought that was an interesting proposal from Erdogan. Right now, Russian and Turkish trade is at, I believe it's at something like 61 billion, and the goal is to reach 100 billion in trade between the two countries. And look, Turkey is in no position to trade in their own currency with really any country, given the currency issues that they have. But just the fact that Turkey and Erdogan approach Russia and they say, let's not trade with any other currency, specifically the dollar or the euro. Let's just have bilateral trade in our own national currencies. Just the fact that Erdogan brings it up is pretty incredible. There was a time, maybe 3-4 years ago, where bringing up such a proposal was taboo. I mean, if a world leader were to say that out loud to another world leader, let's ditch the dollar and trade in our own currency. Well, that world leader would be regime changed right away. But now this is kind of a daily occurrence, it seems. You know, countries are just coming out almost on a daily basis, and they're saying, let's trade between our own national currencies and forget the dollar. So that tells you something. That really, really tells you something. Putin also told Erdogan, he also told the press that was in attendance, he said that Russia is going to provide free grain as well, low-cost grain as well as free grain, and he said that Turkey can process a lot of this grain. So Erdogan was happy with that because it means that Turkey's going to make money from the grain transport, but cutting Ukraine and the collective West out of the picture. So that was the meeting between Putin and Erdogan. And Putin said something else interesting that has nothing to do with the grain deal. He said that the counteroffensive, the big super duper counteroffensive that Ukraine launched 3 months ago is not stalled. It hasn't stalled, but it is a failure. He said that. And then he also said, well, let me see if I have his quote here. He said, it's not stalled, it is a failure. And then he said, at least this is how it looks today. Let's see what happens next. I hope this will continue to be the case. Quite an interesting statement from Putin, a very interesting statement. He understands the narrative that the collective West has been trying to push out there with the counteroffensive, which is that this thing is stalled and everything is stalled on the front line and it's not really a failure. It's not a win. It's just all stalled. It's a stalemate, right? That's what they've been saying for like the past month, the collective West media. It's a stalemate. All is good. It's just a stalemate. And Putin's like, bro, it's not a stalemate. It's not stalled. It's a failure. Let's call it for what it is. It's a failure. And then Putin's like, let's see what happens next. You know, he's not panicking. He's not panicking. It's not to say that he's not concerned. I imagine he's absolutely concerned with the fighting on the front line, but I think he sees everything in perspective. Obviously, he has the correct picture as to what is going on. He knows 1,000 times more than we know. But I think he understands that there's fighting in Rabotinje and Verbove, and these are very small villages in the security zone, and there's just fighting taking place there, and let's see what happens. But it's nowhere near Melitopol, it's nowhere near Mariupol, and it's nowhere near the goals that the collective West, NATO, and the Zelensky regime set out at the beginning of the counteroffensive. And he's like, let's see what happens. I hope it goes well. I'm sure it'll go well. Everything is good. You know, he's like, it's all good. It's a failure of a counteroffensive. Whatever the results of Rabotinje, it's a failure. And let's see what happens from there. That was Putin's remarks. And Shoigu said the same thing, by the way. He also said that the big counteroffensive is indeed a failure. Actually, Shoigu even said that the Ukraine losses now are at 65 or 66,000. He actually said casualties, I believe. So not KIA, casualties in the 3 months are at 60, 65, 66,000. That is a huge price to pay for the Ukraine military in order to gain a village, an abandoned village of 480 people in the gray zone. So that's Putin's assessment. That's Shoigu's assessment. But it's not the UK Telegraph's assessment as to what is happening on the front lines, because the UK Telegraph, they put out an article yesterday or today, with the title, Ukraine is approaching the final layer of a key defensive line. Not the first line of defense, not the second line of defense, not even the third line of defense. The Ukraine military is approaching the final layer of a key defensive line. Now, as you read I'm going to read you some of the UK Telegraph article, but as I read this article, you have to really listen to the words they use. You know, when you read these articles, you have to read these articles that they put out. Like, you just can't read it in one go and come out with a good understanding as to what is going on, or come out with the truth. You have to read it like 5-10 times to finally get to the truth of what they're saying. Anyway, here's what the UK Telegraph wrote in this article. Ukrainian troops have reached the third and final layer of a key Russian line of defense. A key Russian line of defense. That's important, according to war analysts. Kiev's forces have reached fighting positions near Verbove in the southern Zaporozhye region, said George Baros, a Russia analyst at the Institute for the Study of War, Victoria Nuland's think tank. The settlement is a nodal point in the so-called Surovikin line, the main line of Russian defenses in the area. The line is named after General Surovikin, who was briefly in charge of Moscow's war effort in Ukraine before being replaced in January. Quote, Ukrainian forces continue pressuring the line between Verbove and Rapotinye and may be setting conditions to breach the line in earnest, Mr. Baros said, citing another settlement in the region which Ukraine said it had captured last month. They mentioned Surovikin. By the way, there's a photo of Surovikin that's floating around the interwebs. Even Russian media reported on this photo. It looks like Surovikin is going to be coming back. He's not under house arrest. He's walking with his wife. And it looks like we may be hearing more of Surovikin in the near future, perhaps when Russia goes on the offensive. Anyway, this article, if you just read this the first time around, you're left with the impression that Ukraine has broken all the way through all the layers of defense, and it's pretty much game over. Ukraine has done it. They've broken through the final layer of Russian defenses, and they split apart the Russian forces. Next stop, Melitopol. After Melitopol, Mariupol, and then Crimea. It's a done deal. It's a success for Zelensky. That's the takeaway when you just read this, you know, the first go around, the first time. But you get to the words that they use, and you can tell that they're covering up the truth of what is going on. They say that they use the word a key Russian line of defense, right? They don't specify if it's the main three Russian lines of defenses, which are located in Tokmak and Melitopol and further down. They just say that the Ukraine military has reached, a key Russian defense layer. We don't know which one, but it's key, according to Victoria Nuland's think tank, the Institute for the Study of War. And then they also talk about how fighting is taking place in Verbove, which is an acknowledgement that Ukraine is fighting in the security zone, in the gray area. Forbes is saying that Ukraine is fighting in Verbove. But, they don't present the map so that you can see where Verbove is. And if you saw a map, you would realize that Verbove, this final layer of some Russian defense, somewhere up there, this fighting that's taking place in Verbove is actually a good distance away from Melitopol and from the Sea of Azov. But you have to break open a map, you have to find Verbove, you have to find the Sea of Azov, and then you get an understanding as to where this fighting is taking place. But Forbes is acknowledging that the Ukraine military is still stuck in this gray area. And the article goes on to say that the fighting that is taking place in Verbove is taking place at a key point in the Surovikin line, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Ukraine is fighting in the gray area, somewhere in the Surovikin line. It's the third layer of some defenses, but we don't know if it's the third layer in the first layer of defenses, or is it the third layer in the second layer of defenses? But it's in Verbove, Rapotinye. We're not going to tell you where Verbove is. You go find it out yourself and do your own research. That's pretty much what this article says. It's a very deceptive article. It really is. a very deceptive article, but it does admit that the Ukraine military, after 3 months of this conflict, is still fighting in Rabotyne and Verbove. So NBC News, they also put out an article basically saying the same thing as the Telegraph, saying that the Ukraine forces have gained a foothold in the area where they have breached Russia's first main defense line in the south. This is according to UKR, an advisor to Ukraine's defense minister. And he said that everything is very dynamic right now, but the initiative is definitely on our side, Sachs said on the phone from Kiev. So it's also, you know, NBC News, they're also admitting that Ukraine is still stuck in Rabotyne and Verbove. They're still stuck in the gray area, the security zone. And they use the word foothold. They're gaining a foothold in Verbove. They haven't taken it over. They haven't captured it. They haven't reached the first line of defense. They're gaining a foothold. So that's from NBC. NBC, in the same article, they also talk about the firing of Reznikov. And NBC, they say that Reznikov was fired not because of the failure of the big counteroffensive. No, that's not why he was fired. Reznikov was fired because of corruption. And Zelensky is cracking down on corruption. Zelensky is cracking down on corruption. Yeah. All right. So yeah, poor Reznikov. Poor Reznikov. He's going to be the corrupt defense minister. The corrupt defense minister that lost the big counteroffensive, that bungled the big counteroffensive. But, you know, NBC News, they're saying, no. It has nothing to do with the counteroffensive. All is good there. Reznikov was fired because he's just a corrupt guy. So think about that. He was, according to Collective West Media, the BBC, by the way, they said the same thing. But according to Collective West Media, okay, now this is the narrative that they want to tell us. Reznikov was not fired because the failure of the counteroffensive. He's fired because over the past year and a half, as the Minister of Defense, he's been corrupt. And so are you telling all of us that the hundreds of billions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine was being handled by a corrupt defense minister? Because all the military aid passes through the Ministry of Defense. And this guy's fired because he's corrupt. So after a year and a half, all the hundreds of billions that you were sending to Ukraine were being managed by the corrupt minister, Reznikov. Is that the narrative? So basically the hundreds of billions, it's gone because of this corrupt guy, right? Is that what you want to tell us? All the money, poof, it's vanished because Reznikov is corrupt. That's what they want to tell us. It has nothing to do with the failure of the counteroffensive. It has everything to do with the Minister of Defense is corruption. The same Minister of Defense that has been managing the 150 billion in military aid. Good job. Good job, Collective West. Really, really good job. So the BBC, they basically said the same thing as NBC. That's the line that they're going to go with. That's the script. Reznikov is corrupt. That's why he was fired. But the BBC then takes it further and they profile the incoming Minister of Defense, Mr. Umerov. And they talk about how Umerov is of Crimean Tatar origin, and he loves Crimea, and he's going to fight for Crimea. And he has a degree in something or another, and he's been serving with the Zelensky government for a certain amount of time. Anyway, they talk him up. It's a bit of a PR puff piece for Umerov, who, by the way, if you believe some of the videos that are and the images that are floating out about Umerov on social media, the guy's pretty freaky. I'm not going to put any of the images on the screen, because if I were to put them up on the screen, this channel would get obliterated. But let's just say that if these images are indeed of a younger Umerov, then this guy is, how can I put this? Let's just say that this guy would get along with Hunter Biden really well. let's just leave it at that. He has those EU values that that you hear Ursula always talking about. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, the important part of the BBC article is where they explain a bit about Umerov's education, but they also explain what he was doing previously before he got appointed, or before he's about to get appointed once the parliament approves it as defense minister. Here's what the BBC says in their article. The BBC says in their article, in 2013, Umerov founded the investment company Astem and a linked charity program that was set up to train Ukrainian politicians, lawyers, and community leaders at Stanford University in the United States. He was elected to the Ukrainian parliament in 2019 and was later made head of the State Property Fund, a government agency that sells state assets to private investors. This was seen as a challenging role in a country where privatization has been dogged by corruption. Yeah. Yeah, this guy's not gonna be corrupt. No. He's not gonna take any of that military aid money and distribute 10% to the big guy. No. So this guy was in charge of the property fund. Let's see, the property fund. I'm thinking of like a really big company which is just buying up property all over the world. What's that company's name? I think it has a rock in it or something. I think it has something rock. I don't know. I can't remember that company's name. But yeah, I imagine that this guy has had a lot of dealings with this company that's just buying up land all over the place. There's also another company called Monsanto, maybe, that likes to buy up farmland. I wonder if he's had dealings with them while he was in Stanford training politicians and politicians, lawyers, and community leaders. Yeah, this guy was in Stanford training politicians, lawyers, and community leaders for Ukraine. Yeah, okay. Oh boy. If you thought Reznikov was corrupt, Collective West Media, hold my beer. That's what Umerov is saying. Hold my beer. That's what he's saying. So let's shift gears now. Let's shift gears into a couple more stories before I get to my clown world. I'm doing all right on time. By the way, this tree right here, this olive tree, is 15 centuries old. 15 centuries old. Incredible, huh? Incredible. And of course, that's the famous statue, the runner, made out of glass. Those sheets of glass. And that's a fountain. And that was the Hilton Hotel, but being renovated, I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe it'll still be the Hilton Hotel, but we'll see. They've been at this for like 2-3 years now. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, let's talk about Romania. Let's talk about what happened in Romania. Well, it didn't happen in Romania. It happened close to the borders of Romania. And you know who has a really good breakdown of this is Emil Kozmin. He has a good breakdown of this story. So check out his video. But here's my summary. The Russian Ministry of Defense, as I said in a video a couple days ago, they destroyed the grain ports. Well, allegedly, these were grain ports. I think they were storing weapons. They destroyed these ports close to the borders of Romania, but still in Ukraine. And they did this a day before the meeting between Erdogan and Putin. And what happened after that is that the Zelensky government, they came out with a statement and they said that Russia sent drones and missiles into Romania, and they attacked Romania, and this is an attack on NATO, and blah blah blah. Article 5. You know the story. You know how it goes. This is very much what they tried to do in Poland. Remember the missile that hit like the farmland and actually killed, I believe, 2 people. But remember when that missile? It was Ukraine. I think it was like an S-200 missile. It landed in Poland. It killed 2 people, and the Zelensky regime, they lied, and they said this was Russia attacking Poland, and this is Article 5. NATO needs to get involved, and we found out that it was a lie. Thanks to social media and the photographs of the missile, it was revealed that this was a lie, and this was actually a Ukrainian missile that misfired or was diverted into Polish territory. Well, they're trying to use the same playbook, and they tried to pin the blame on Russia, saying that Russia was attacking Romania. Well, Romania, they came out very quick. We're talking very quick, and they put out an official statement. Romania's defense ministry said that, and I quote, "It firmly denies the information circulating in the public space with regard to a so-called situation that occurred during the night of 3-4 September when Russian drones would have fallen on Romania's national territory. While the ministry said it condemned the attacks on Ukraine, it stressed that, and I quote, at no time did the means of attack employed by the Russian Federation pose direct military threats to our national territory or Romania's territorial waters." In other words, Romania is saying, Zelensky, we're not ready for conflict with Russia. We don't want any part of this war. And they denied it right away. Right away, they denied it. And once again, Ukraine, the Zelensky regime, has been caught lying. So one more story, and I'll get to my clown worlds. According to the Wall Street Journal, they put out a report saying that Western states are concerned that the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, which recently just entered BRICS, they supplied computer chips, electronic components, and other products which have both civilian and military applications to help Russia in its war against Ukraine. And according to the Wall Street Journal, the Biden White House and the European Union, they're going to put a whole bunch of pressure on the UAE to stop supplying what they call dual-use goods, which means computers which have chips that could then be used by Russia in order to power up tanks and fighter jets. You know, they believe in the whole washing machine microchip thing. That's basically what they're saying. Russia is taking chips from washing machines. Their economy is in tatters. Tatters, I tell you. That speech from Ursula is still believed up to today. They really believe that speech from Ursula. They really believe it. And you know that the Wall Street Journal, they wanted to put in this paragraph washing machines, but they didn't put it in there. They put computer chips, electronic components, and other products. Come on, Wall Street Journal. You know you want to say washing machines. You know you want to say washing machines. Come on now. Come on. But yeah, they're saying basically that these dual-use goods are being exported to Russia, and Russia is taking the chips from computers and they're using them to power up their tanks and their fighter jets, which is amazing. If Russia's doing it, well then, unbelievable. Russia, well, what can I say? Russia has the greatest, most innovative engineers on the planet. If they're doing that, you know. My hats off to you guys. That's pretty creative and innovative. But yeah, that's the Wall Street Journal. And you know, I did a video with Alexander and we talked about this, and Alexander made a good point. What the collective West is really doing is they're freaked out at BRICS expansion. And so they're targeting the UAE, which is one of the countries that's going to be entering BRICS in 2024. And they're basically using this washing machine, microchips, tatters excuse to try and break trade between the UAE and Russia, because the collective West, they understand that if the UAE enters BRICS, one of the conditions for being a part of BRICS is that you can't have sanctions between countries inside of BRICS, right? The countries inside of BRICS, because above and beyond everything else, BRICS is a trading bloc. And so one of the conditions is that you can't have sanctions between BRICS members, and you can't prevent trade between BRICS members. And so what the collective West is doing is they're using this microchip excuse to try and force some kind of breakdown in BRICS. And they're focusing on UAE. The UAE leadership, I'm 1000% confident they understand what's going on, and they're going to tell the collective West, yeah, whatever. Don't worry, we'll keep an eye on those washing machines and those microchips, and we'll make sure that Russia doesn't use the washing machine microchips to power up their fighter jets. Don't worry. And that's how they'll handle this. Anyway, let's do a clown world. Yeah, let's do a clown world, and we will wrap this video up. And the title from the Wall Street Journal article, by the way, is Western officials plan to warn UAE over trade with Russia. Requests to stop exporting items that can be used in war against Ukraine have been largely ignored, Western officials say. So the clown world has to do with Olaf Scholz. Olaf Scholz and the accident that he had while he was running. Look, it happens. When you run, when you play sports, you get into accidents. It happens to everybody. We've all had it happen to us. Whatever sport you play, accidents happen. You get beaten up, you get scratches, you get broken arms and broken legs and broken fingers, whatever. You get bruised up. This is a part of sports. And Olaf Scholz, he went for a run the other day, and the story goes he fell down and he mangled up his face, and he has a bunch of scratches on his face, and he messed up his eye, and he decided to go with an eye patch. That's what he decided to go with. And the title from The Independent says, Olaf Scholz eye patch. Germany's chancellor pictured with pirate-style covering after jogging accidents. A pirate-style covering after jogging accidents. Yeah, you play sports, you get beaten up, it sucks. I hope he heals up, and I'm sure he's going to be okay. But the way his PR and media team handled this, you know, they were very concerned about the optics of all of this. And so instead of trying to hide away Olaf Scholz or something like that, they decided to just own it. And so they got Olaf Scholz to take a photo, a very nice photo, a very professional photo, and they posted it on Twitter. He has his eye patch, and underneath this tweet, from what I understand, it's Olaf Scholz saying that he's waiting to see the memes that are going to come out of this eye patch picture. So, you know, his PR team, they said, look, we can't avoid this, we can't hide this, so let's just own it. Let's own it, let's have fun with it, and let's see what happens. And sure enough, people have fun with this. Boy, did they have fun with this, and boy, were the memes pretty funny. How about this meme? German economy 2022, German economy 2023. That's a good one. And you know, yesterday, my video yesterday was very prophetic, it seems. I talked about the Challenger tanks, and we had a Challenger tank destroyed. And I also saw some parakeets, and I talked about parakeets yesterday, right? That was a big part of my video yesterday, the parakeets. And sure enough, we have a meme of Olaf Scholz wearing his pirate cap and his pirate-style patch, and sitting on his shoulder is a pretty green parakeet. My video from yesterday was very, very prophetic. I mean, wow. I knew those parakeets must have been trying to tell us something. They were telling us something. The universe was telling us something. And so we got the meme of Olaf Scholz as a pirate with the parakeet on his shoulder. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. When you run, when you, I don't know, when you skateboard, when you bicycle, when you play basketball or football or MMA or boxing or anything, you get dinged up. That's a part of life, Olaf. That's a part of life. You'll be okay. You'll be all fixed up very, very soon, and I'm sure that you'll hand over those Taurus missiles to Ukraine very, very soon as well. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on ODYSEE, Rumble, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter. And look for me on Twitter. If you can find me on Twitter, follow me. And Rumble, I'm still trying to sort it out, but it looks like my Rumble channel, Alexander's Rumble channel, the Duran's Rumble channel is completely collapsed. Rumble has, it seems like Rumble has obliterated our channels, unfortunately. Oh well, it happens. Anyway, take care, everybody.